It's Yngwie Day! But there's only one problem. My tone doesn't sound like Yngwie's tone at all, does it? So that's what we're gonna try to fix in this video. Even though we might not end up sounding like Yngwie, at least we want to find a tone that matches the backing tracks and that allows us to play as smoothly as possible. So here are my partners in crime. I have this American Deluxe Strat, and it has nothing to do with Yngwie's style of guitar, except for the fact that I've scalloped it. I don't know if you can tell. But Yngwie uses single coil sized humbuckers. I don't. I have true single coils here that are vintage voiced. So instead, I'm going to pull my this switch here, which gives me these two single coils in series. Kind of humbuckerish, in other words. And as a starting point, I search for a profile or sound patch to my Kemper that would be a good starting point for an Yngwie type of sound. And in this case, I found a YJM, Yngwie Malmsteen kind of Marshall signature profile. However, the problem is most people try to dial in a tone with lots of distortion because, they want to play fast when playing like Yngwie, and distortion helps when you play fast. The only problem is that Yngwie himself is not a big fan of super distorted tones. And of course, having his technique helps. But there are other tricks that allow you to get a smooth kind of tone without, going wild with the distortion. And that's what we're going to explore today. Okay, so the sound we start off with sounds like this. It is very bright and it's kind of high gainish. So we're going to start by turning down the gain quite a bit and see what happens. Hopefully we should get less brightness here. Yeah. And we also get not enough sustain and sounds kind of not Yngwie-ish at all. So I remember Yngwie saying that he wanted a tone that was just enough distorted so that when he played a chord, you could actually hear the distortion. But not when you played a single note. So I guess that qualifies. But one little trick that helps when you want to play fast runs and you want sort of the notes to have like an even dynamics to them. Maybe you want to compensate for a technique that might not be perfect yet. Then I like to go for low mid-range. And one way of achieving that is to go for a tube screamer kind of pedal. So that's what we're going to do. Here we have the tube screamer fired up. And let's increase the gain or the level on the tube screamer. So we're pushing the front end of the amp here. Kind of bright. We want the lower part of mid-range here, so we're going to turn it down quite a bit. And this is already better, so the tube scream does it for us. So we have much more a low mid-range happening there, but we still could use more. We still could use more of some type of compression that helps us with the runs. And Kemper has some cool functionality for that. One of them is power sagging, which I guess is not really compression. It's something that happens when you push a real amp. However, the algorithm is really cool and it seems to help for fast runs. Gives me some kind of compression there. And we're gonna actually use the compressor that can be found within the amp section of the Kemper. It's a very special compression because it only applies to what Kemper calls the clean part of the tone, whatever that means, because my tone isn't clean at all. However, the effect is that you get, when you're starting with a distorted tone, you get more low end. So I guess basically what's happening is you're compressing and raising the clean part of the sound, which is richer in low end. Okay. Still kind of bright, so I'm gonna go use the strongest parameter here, or most powerful, which is the definition, and it's set at 10 now. And in this part of the spectrum, it supposedly sounds like a high-end boutique amp, and when you turn it all the way down, it gets more like a vintage amp. So I'm gonna decrease it quite a bit because I want to get rid of those the high end there. And it's now much softer, I would say. Something that also helps, or can help with the picking, is to increase, or with the fast runs, is to increase the pick parameter, which gives you like more attack in the initial part of the sound, like it gives you a peak right in the beginning of each note. This also helps when you're trying to do legato. So yeah, that's a whole bunch of parameters there. We're still kind of far, I would say, from actually sounding anywhere near Yngwie. So I just want to do a little bit more of EQ tweaking there, because I think there's some high end that's still a bit sharp. So I'm going to move down the high shift of the cabinet. And this has a very powerful effect. Basically, it's the whole high spectrum that gets moved down when I do that. There's also a pure cabinet parameter here that might work for this. But it can remove a little bit too much of what makes the sound stick out. Having a little bit of it might work. I want a bit more like flow, so I'm gonna try to increase the volume of the green screen some more. Now we're getting quite a bit of gain, so I'm gonna decrease the gain of the amp a little bit. Maybe get rid of a little bit of low end there. Okay, so let's try it with a backing track. So yeah, it might be fun to play with, but it's still not very balanced. It seems the backing track isn't loud enough, so I'm gonna turn it up. Now when I turn it up, it seems my guitar sound gets drained. And this is very common. You might have experienced it yourself, especially when you're boosting the low end of the sound. It can make the sounds very good on its own, and it can help with the faster runs, but it makes it hard in the mix, right? It's a very classic beginner mistake to sort of just increase the low end. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to add some brightness to the sound now, but without ruining everything we've done so far. So we could head towards the middle and treble parameters, but those are kind of close to what we've been messing with, which is somewhere here in between bass and middle, I would say. So I'm going to go as far away as possible to the presence knob, which is really the top end of the sound, and see if I can compensate and get a more balanced sound there. Quite a bit of a difference there. So if I undo that, redo, it's the top end of the spectrum. Let's see if that is enough for us to cut through now. Yeah, pretty good. Undo. Redo. Now I could go even wilder and maybe start adding a bit of treble, or not wilder, but I could add even more brightness. However, I'm a bit cautious with that because I have one final tool at my disposal, which are the time-based effects. As you might have noticed, the sound is really dry, and that is preventing it from sounding anywhere near like Yngwie, who has usually kind of expensive, rack reverb, I would guess, going. So I don't know if it's like Lexicon or some of those classic reverb and delays, TC Electronics, something. I don't know. I don't have that. I just have a Kemper, but there are good reverbs and delays in here, so I'm going to try to see if I can match his reverb and delay. And my conclusion was that with the time-based effect, I have the option to control the brightness. So I don't need to mess up this sound that I've dialed in to give it more treble boost. I can also do a little bit of that via reverb and delay. You know, how I EQ that is going to have an impact on the overall tone and EQ. So let's see. I just want to find a reverb now. Kemper has something called natural reverb. Now there's a pre-delay going. Yeah, that's better. Didn't even sound like reverb there. Okay, this reverb is not very bright sounding. So I'm gonna increase the low decay, which basically removes the low end as the decay is happening. Made it brighter. And I'm gonna remove the high decay and see. And it's so much brighter now. Yeah, this is much better. Maybe a bit too much reverb. I'm gonna decrease the mix there. I would say this is fairly natural sounding for like a big reverb. Let's see. And now we want to find a delay there. And as I said, to me, Yngwie's reverb and delay has that sort of crystal sound to it. So I'm going for something that's called crystal delay in Kemper. So there's lots of feedback happening there. Let me just see if I can tap the tempo of the backing track here. That was hard. Okay, so. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not too bad there. Let's just increase the mix of the delay. And it's actually a bit in the way there, so I'm gonna add some ducking. So basically, when I play, the delay is ducking, and when I stop playing, that's when you hear the delay tail. Bit too much, maybe, and then the mix is kind of high. Something is a bit bright. Let's see if I can decrease the brightness of the delay here. So let's try this with the backing track. Cool. So yeah, there we go. And without the backing track, still a little bit on the brights, or just the top end maybe, but you could try just maybe using the tone knob on your guitar like this, just a little bit. But it's hard because you need some of that brightness to cut through. And a lot of time, what you perceive as a bright sound without the backing track is just going to sound perfect with the backing track. So you have to keep that in mind as you're tweaking your tone. You should actually do it with a backing track. That helps immensely getting the whole picture. And getting something that works in the mix. So I hope this has been somewhat useful to you. I'm still learning to do these tone videos, so any feedback you have for me is appreciated. I'm going to also give the link to, you can look below, either in the comment section or in the forum topic if you want to try this backing track yourself. Cool. Have a good one. Cheers.